Did I just overhaul my plans for this month's video in the name of cozy vibes? Yeah. Whoops. Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. As you may or may not know, Steam had their summer sale at the beginning of last month, and among the titles I decided to pick up, I was suggested a very cozy early access game, Small Spaces. Small Spaces is an interior design game developed by Nicholas Tomkowitz and published by Pretty Soon. If I've mispronounced Nicholas's name, please let me know in the comments, as well as if I ever mispronounce anyone's name in my videos. I do my best to pronounce developer names accurately, but I'm not perfect, and I'm always happy to be corrected if I mispronounce someone's name. Now, without further ado, let's dive in. Are you the kind of person who boots up a Sims game, immediately slaps the motherload cheat in, and then spends the next 5 to 7 business days designing the perfect home for your Sims to live in just to forget that it's even supposed to be a life simulation game and not an interior design game? Well, you're in luck. Because in Small Spaces, you get to do all of the decorating with none of the cheat codes, none of the money constraints, and none of the wabba-debba-doo! And you even get to do it with, in my opinion, much better looking furniture. Yes, the graphics in this game are absolutely beautiful. I would expect these dynamic lighting effects and honestly downright impressive assets in games from an established studio, but from an indie? This is incredible. The assets in this game actually had me a bit worried I'd wandered into enemy territory, and I was scared I was going to find out that these assets were made with AI. I don't want to talk down on anyone by any means. You all know I love indie games and their developers very much. But it's also no secret that indie games tend to have more simple graphics. I don't even blame them for that, and I think oftentimes those graphics can be a big selling point for those games, but it's also really nice to see this level of detail coming from an indie dev on occasion, especially when we don't even get this quality from a lot of AAA developers. I am over the moon with these visuals, and I could very realistically see the Steam Award for Outstanding Visual Style in Nicholas and Pretty Soon's possession come December. Alright, with my gushing over the graphics out of the way, let's get into the actual gameplay. After all, a game can look plenty good and still not actually be that fun to play. Thankfully, though, that's not the case here. Small Spaces is as fun to play as it is to look at. There's no added pressure from a limited budget or a clock counting down in the corner of your screen. Your only limitations are meeting each resident's requests for their units, which are all pretty easy to follow. About 90% of the level requirements are, can we legally call this a dwelling meant for people to live in? And if the answer is yes, congratulations. You've probably got enough boxes checked to finish the level. Aside from each person's extra wishes, which do give you an extra star that can be spent in the store if you fulfill them, the sky, the existing walls, and the materials you have access to are pretty much your only limits. And that last one is hardly a limit with the sheer amount of materials there are to be unlocked in the store using the stars you earn from each level. Speaking of the levels, we have 4 settings with 3 homes each that unlock with progressive gameplay. Each level has their own residents who have their own stories and interests, and it's up to you to meet their needs. Though, as I said before, those needs are pretty minimal, and don't generally feel limiting or imposing on your creative freedom. The first set of apartments are in New York, the second are in Berlin, the third in Tokyo, and the last are off-grid container units, which is a style of architecture that I'm actually deeply fascinated by in the real world, and I'm very glad to see their implementation into a game like Small Spaces, because it's the perfect setting for these kinds of builds. I was also very happy to see Tokyo listed, because for those of you that don't know, Japan as a whole, but especially Tokyo, is home to some very interesting tiny apartments. And as someone who grew up on the Japanese living side of YouTube, I think that these units may have been some of my favorite to decorate. I really appreciated that Hana's apartment in Shibuya in particular featured something that is extremely common in Japan, the Genkan, which, if you don't know, is the usually sunken entrance of a Japanese home where you take off your shoes before entering the main living space. I also particularly enjoyed working on Hana's apartment, as her backstory made me think of Mikan Mandarin, who, if you don't know, is a YouTuber who moved to Japan not too long after high school, where she ended up attending the same college that Hana goes to and went on to start her own fashion brand, Vina of the Valley. I definitely drew some inspiration from Mikan's apartments that she has lived in while working on this build, and I was really happy with how it turned out. As mentioned previously, as you complete the levels in small spaces, you'll be given stars you can spend in the store to unlock furniture types, building materials, and different finishes and textures to really bring your ideas to life. Of course, since you don't have all these materials available to you right out the gate, you may feel a little limited on your first few builds, but because you're able to go back and play previous levels, it adds an additional layer of replayability to this game, which already had a fair number of options to begin with. Now, obviously this game is not without its quirks. That's a given. You show me a game that has no glitches, no bugs, no awkward controls, and I simply won't believe you. Because it doesn't exist. There is no game that runs as intended 100% of the time, no questions asked. But the quirks in some games are more plentiful than others, and this one falls in the lower end of those problems. On occasion, you'll notice item snapping doesn't work as smoothly as expected. Sometimes the lighting may glitch, or borders of certain assets may glitch, and for some reason, sometimes you'll be missing chunks out of certain pieces of furniture. But none of these issues make small spaces unenjoyable, and it certainly doesn't make it unplayable. Especially with this being an early access game, I'm willing to overlook problems that are almost exclusively cosmetic. Honestly, even if it wasn't in early access, I would still be willing to look the other way when the problems are this inconsequential, and I mean, honestly, I can count the number of times I ran into any of these issues during my entire playthrough on one hand. Small Spaces is, overall, an absolutely stunning game, and it's quite surprising to me that it feels this well polished despite being an early access title, as well as having such a small credits list. Small Spaces is yet another example of why indie games have been gaining more and more traction in recent years. Games done this well are proof that you do not need a budget of $1 million, a massive team, and a giant corporate office to make good games, and I'm really excited to see what the final version of this game looks like after it leaves early access. What do you guys think? Will you be checking this one out for yourself, or are you planning to sit out for now? Also, what games did you guys pick up during the Steam Summer Sale? Let me know in the comments down below, and until next time, stay cozy! Let's get into the actual gameplay. Can I help you? God. You can spend in the store to unlock furniture types, building materials, and different finishes.